Hello and welcome. For those of you new to my channel, welcome. For those returning, welcome back. Appreciate your viewership. So this is going to be my weekend update, my race breakdown, ultimately whatever name is going to stick to it. I like the idea of calling it the breakdown, but basically this is going to be where I go through some of the races that I've done this week and talk about some of the significant events in those races, and really just to help consolidate my editing because I am getting behind and I want to make sure that, I cover the races that I've done, some of the results that I'm getting, and the things that I'm experimenting with while I'm doing these races. And so the first race that we're going to kick off with is
built on sweat and pain. Marines, a cyclist, breaking the chains. No fuel needed, just power and drive. Ride with me, let's come alive.
All right, so the first video we're going to start off with is the Community Racing Festival Richmond roller coaster. This was Monday night last week. So if you were there, you know which date I'm talking about. It was October 29th. And basically the way this, the way this race was run, actually no, this was not Monday night, it was Tuesday, October 29th. Yes, Tuesday. Wasn't able to do my usual Monday night race, so I jumped into this, and the way that I started this race was definitely different. I ended up starting the race using the Atomic Cruiser, and the reason why I did that was because I felt like that bike was unusually fast on sprints, and I thought, let me see what it's like to race with it and see if I can keep up, see if I can keep my momentum. Once you get the bike up to speed, it does move pretty quickly. If you saw my previous video, in terms of my sprinting, that's the bike I used for those 1,000 watt plus efforts in sprinting and in the McCurry Islands. So I was like, you know what? Let me try it out. Also, at the same time, I was testing the water that I was drinking. Water that I typically use is, alkaline oxygenated water. Great stuff, filtered, super filtered, and works great. Gives me the ability to feel like I am staying hydrated while I'm exercising and while I'm, racing. This time around, I decided not to go with that water, just use regular flat water, because I wanted to see if that made a difference in my performance, to see if it was just the water or if it's something else in terms of my nutrition plan. That's kind of what I like to focus a lot on, especially when I'm racing, is make minor tweaks here and there, add something, take away something, to see what benefits or lack thereof I get from the product. And so in this case, I was using my regular flat water, tap water, out of my refrigerator, with same stuff I normally do. Electrolytes. I drink a little bit of MCT oil mixed in with an amino acid supplement that I have, and that's how my normal preloading, if you want to call it that, goes in terms of working up to the start of the race. I generally start my prehydration preload process within about 2 hours of the start of the race. And so here we go off with the Atomic Cruiser. We've already set out from the pen, and if you look at my draft indicator up in the up next to the mini map, you'll see that right now it says I'm saving 130 watts, and you'll see it jump all over the place. 170, 200 watt savings, supposedly, and it starts to, especially in this part of the stage, 300, 360, it's like it keeps jumping up, and I'm wondering what is going on. I think the highest it got is into the 700s, which sounds absolutely absurd. And the reason why I point that out is because I feel like there's a game dynamic there that's kind of having issues. I personally think it's a bug. When it comes to my IT experience, I've been in the IT industry for 20 plus years. I feel like that's a bug. And the reason why I feel like that's a bug is because if you look at what's happening, is my bike will shift forward and back and kind of have that undulating process. And what I think is happening is the weight of the Atomic Cruiser is being counteracted by the aerodynamics of the wheels. And so I think because the wheels are very aerodynamic, because I'm using the DT Swiss disc wheels, I'm building that momentum to go forward, and then the weight of the bike is pulling me back, and then forward and back and forward and back, which really gets annoying because you see it, especially like you're seeing it right now on the camera or on the video. I'm seeing that live while I'm racing. So it's not just an artifact of the recording. It's actually happening to me while I'm racing, and that's so frustrating because I feel like I lose concentration in that, watching it go forward and back like that. So, as soon as we get to this climb here, I'm toast. I am, I'm pushing, 300 plus watts. I have to go so deep just to keep up with this group. You saw a second ago, I hit about 450. I think the highest I get on this climb is right around 500. And it's really because I'm putting out as much effort as I can just to keep up. And that's when I realized I made an absolutely terrible mistake by using that bike. I shouldn't have stayed with it, but it is what it is. So, again, just putting out a lot of effort here. You see me going to 540, almost 550 there. And that's just me trying to keep up. If I had my Pinarello Dogma F 2024 with the Pinarello Power paint job, at 500 watts, I'd have got to the top of that climb and with no issues, I'd have dropped the group. It wouldn't have been a big deal. But with this bike, I'm having a struggle just to hold on. So I get to the top, I ease off a little bit because I'm hurting. And I think, okay, I've got, a little bit of a hill left, but I've got that blue section where I can recover a little bit on the decline. And so even though I'm starting to fall off the back here, my focus is, I can use the momentum and the weight of myself, being 85.5 kilograms and the bike in order to catch up to this group. But spoiler alert, never happens. So I will fast forward through all of this here. All right, so fast forwarding through this part, you see that I end up, catching up to this person and, catching up to another person here on this second climb. And again, having to put out a lot of watts in order to do that, to really maintain my momentum. And then on this next downhill, as we come back off the backside of this KOM, this little group starts to form. And, I just use the momentum of the bike just to keep going because I figure why not? At this point, I've got it. I'm not, switching out bikes. Might as well just keep the momentum going, staying off the front here and, essentially riding my race at this point. And so we start coming up the backside of this part of the climb, which, I see the person in front of me, do my best to bridge. Because again, the more people I can draft off of in this area, especially since we're in a spot in the race where we're essentially in the valley. So we're essentially in the valley here, and that's going to give me the ability to, to just kind of hold on to this group. You can see the person in the right hand side. He had obviously steering because he's pulling off to the left and right. But here we are again, back to normal speed. And yeah, this is just another climb where I'm having to do a lot of work to get up to the top of this climb with this group. And so at this point, I'm thinking, I can hold a little bit more of an effort on some of these climbs, in the 300s, upper 200s, into the 300s. And I figure if I can hold that kind of an effort, I can get to the top of the climb. My focus, was ultimately getting to the top of this climb. I was actually, while I was racing, I was having some moments of flashbacks because I did this. This was my very first TTT course. And, I don't know this course as well as, when I initially did the TTT for the WTRL Zwift Racing League. But this time around, I was, sort of familiar with it. I was remembering, kind of how this stage went. And so right now I'm just trying to get to the top of the climb, holding, 300, ish watts, so I can get to this flat part, rest a little bit, and to kind of do the effort all over again, as well as thinking about, how much further can I get up the road? With this bike, especially on the flat parts, I can build up momentum and kind of keep that rolling. And if I can, start to pull away from these guys, I will. But, for now, I'm just thinking about how can I get to the top of this climb. So as we get to the top of the climb and kind of come around that corner, I start seeing that this group is ultimately going to stay together. And because we're going to stay together, I'm going to, see what people are willing to do. Right now we're hovering in the 200 watt range, which is not really, that's not a hard effort. That's not a strong effort. So my thought was, I'm going to put some surges in and see how much, what kind of gap I can create, what kind of pressure I can put on them. I'm in 17th place right now. My focus is, with the Zwift racing score, we can, if you're in the top 2/3, your score is likely going to go up. If you're in the bottom 1/3, your score is likely going to go down. So I'm focused on that, thinking that right now I'm in the top 2/3. So I should be good to get my, to raise my score. But I've got to stay with this group. More importantly, I got to stay in the front of this group. And I started using my draft here because I was like, you know what? I didn't really need it. But I figure if it helped me build a bigger gap with this group, then it's going to come in handy. But ultimately, as you see, these two guys catch up behind me, and really all that does is just kind of pull them along with me. And that's kind of how the rest of this part of the stage goes. It's just me, surging up to the front and, pulling these guys along. And because, like I said before, if you look at the way the bike is undulating, rocking forward and back, I truly do believe that is an issue. That's a bug with the dynamics between the bike and the wheels. And ultimately what that ends up doing is it slows me down enough to where a lot of these surges I put in go nowhere. They don't stick. These guys end up staying right behind me. They're not even trying to bring me back. They're just holding on to my wheel because it's not really doing anything for them or for me. And so we're coming up to this sprint, and my thought was, let me see where everybody's at. Let me see what kind of legs everybody has. Off the back a little bit, I decided to surge and put in a, sort of decent sprint. I didn't I didn't go max out. I'm in the 500s right now, 600. When I initially kicked it off was in the 700s. So, holding that upper range, let myself kind of fly forward. And just kind of see where everybody's at. I didn't see any high numbers, any orange numbers. So obviously people weren't worried about me going forward, and they were probably thinking to themselves, like, why is he trying to take the sprint now? This isn't a, first across the sector or the section, type of race. I did get third place on the stage in terms of across that sprint, which I felt good about. But that kind of, that let me know that no one's really worried about me at this moment, and what I'm capable of. And so, I let the group kind of come up and around, and, I figured at this point, it's just better off for us to stay together until we get to the end of the stage, which is coming up in about, 4.5 kilometers or so. All right, so here we are in the final sprint, and we're coming up to the final sprint. We're 600 meters away, and I see, the group starting to pull forward on me. I'm starting to increase my watts a little bit, but I'm realizing that I started pushing a little bit too late. I should have gone when I first noticed the guy off the front going. I see this guy's flame socks going, and I start shifting up into my highest gears and thinking, no big deal. I can probably catch them on this sprint. But as I was ramping up my power, I was like, you know what? I'm just not even going to bother. I got up, and just put in an extra effort because I don't want to fall that far behind. Got into the 800s, seeing if I can catch up to these guys, but I realized that it's not going to happen at this point already. They're, already starting to cross the line. And so I just, I looked at where I was at. I was, 22nd place out of 33, which I didn't know at the time. There were people that quit. So I thought I was in, good shape, but ultimately ended up on the bottom 1/3 of the stage. So my Zwift racing score went down by a couple points. No big deal. That's just how some races are. That's just how some races are. And so, again, came across the line, 22nd place. I know that next time, I'm not going to race with that bike ever again. I thought on a stage like this where it's reasonably flat, couple difficult, decent climbs, but not super long climbs, a couple minutes at best. I thought a bike like this on, flat, long roads would be excellent to ride with, but sure enough, not the case. Ended up being not the optimal bike to race with, unless you're a Doom guy. He has a video that he raced with the Atomic Cruiser, and I don't remember what place he got in, but I know he did really, really good. So there you go. It can, that bike can be used to race in the right circumstances. I'm just not the guy who is going to race with that bike again. All right, so this is the next race that I'm going to do a breakdown on. So this is the Podcaster Battle charity race between Team Holly and Team Nathan. And boy, oh boy, what a fantastic race it was. Normally I wouldn't have the, me sitting in the pen for 6.5 minutes in the video. I usually try and cut it down, but I want you guys to see all of the talk that was going on. It was such a fantastic environment. We had 100+ people in the pen on both sides, which ultimately made for a really great race. And you can see just lots of chatter, not only in the actual pen, but also, so I've got, for this race, I had my main camera, which I've switched to one of my bigger Canon digital cameras for my main view. And then I had my main camera going. I had my cell phone was my Zwift companion app. I had a secondary cell phone with Discord, which is what I have my AirPods connected into, so I can chat with some of the other racers. And we had tons of people on the Discord channel, in there, not only on video, but in audio as well. And then I had a third phone with the ZMS Esports Studio live broadcast streaming, so that way I can, essentially glance over and make sure that, kind of see what's going on. So we're about 10 seconds away from starting here, and what a fantastic event. The initial, I'm going to pause it there for a second. The initial idea that we had in terms of what the plan was going to be is we were going to look at the different strengths. So me being on Team Holly, my focus was, I know Holly's a strong climber. I know, so I ended up waking up at like 2:30 in the morning, could not sleep. And then Thomas Sorensen ended up messaging the group chat that we had in Discord, and he was like, hey, what's the plan? Any of you guys, any thoughts? And because I was awake, I was like, you know what, I'll respond. It's like, hey, I think Holly has a fantastic, she's a fantastic climber. And going through, so I ended up going through not only Zwift Power for Holly, but Zwift Power for Nathan. In the Zwift Power event, I could see all the other riders that were in the Team Nathan as well as Team Holly, looking at, sorting by their power numbers, their 20-minute power, their 15-second power, things like that, to really kind of gauge what the group looked like. Fortunately for Team Holly, we had a lot of strong guys. We had a lot of high 20-minute watt power guys and gals. We had, some, A+ professional riders in there, lots of A's, lots of, Cat A's, Cat B's, Cat C guys. And, same thing with Team Nathan. He had a lot of A guys, a lot of B guys. I think his group was actually more B's than it was almost any other category. But, so I'm looking at as much information as I can to really kind of gauge what strategy we should go with. And, going back and forth with Thomas and a couple others on the Discord channel, we were thinking that, hey, Holly's a great climber. She's got a strong 20-minute power. Her 20-minute is 3.7 watts per kilogram versus Nathan's is about 3.3, I think it said in Zwift power. So, he can definitely hold his own when it comes to the 20-minute power, but Holly's got a much bigger motor for long distance, which ultimately, that level of power becomes an advantage when you're climbing. And so, we knew that he had a stronger sprint than she did. His 15-second power is like 800 plus watts. Her 15-second power is in the 600s. So that 200 watt makes a big difference when it comes to sprinting. So we know we didn't want it to come down to a sprint finish. And so in talking, we're thinking, hey, once we get to the base of the Epic KOM, we can launch. We'll launch her off the, we'll launch her up the climb. We'll bring her up the climb, and then whoever's up at the top with her can basically look at TT doing a team time trial across the valley for the KOM bypass, and then get her to the descending part of the KOM bypass, and then that will create enough of a gap to where we can hold that and like I talked with Holly after the race was done. I told her, I was like, seems like that's a strategy that Pogačar uses. He will find a place where he can launch off the front, get a gap, and then he just holds that gap. Now oftentimes he ends up creating a bigger gap because he's a super strong rider, but even like if you look at his the UCI Worlds, he held a 1 minute plus gap for 100 kilometers, and while everybody thought that was crazy, he did it. So getting back to the race here as we get started. So we get out of the pen, and I put some high watts to get out in front, and I realize I see Holly out in front, which ultimately I didn't want her, I didn't want her out there. But because she was out there, I was out there, other guys, Thomas was out there, looking at kind of the group come together. We're in the blue jersey. So, we start forming a decent group up front, and I'm thinking like, all right, Holly's there. I'm going to push as hard as I can to stay in front of her. I want her in the draft the whole time as much as possible while I'm racing. I see, she's essentially at the bottom of the screen now. And my focus is I'm just going to motor on until I can't. We started off a lot stronger than we thought we would. And because we did that, we just didn't let up for as long as we could. And the whole time we're, in the chat, not only talking about, where everybody's at, but also, making, kind of keeping an eye on, where Nathan's at. Because even though in the mini map, you can't really see where he's at, on the Zwift Companion app, I can see where his beacon's at. So, we're talking back and forth, letting each other know like, hey, this is where Nathan's at. This is where we're at. You can see essentially this whole blue squad starts to form up around Holly. And, our focus is getting her moving forward. Again, we didn't think we were going to push this hard off the front, but we did, and we just held on to it. That was, that ultimately became what the race was like. We just held on to it for as long as we can. So I'm going to fast forward here a little bit. And as you saw, we basically just stayed together as a group the whole time. Again, just talking with everybody, letting everybody know kind of where Holly's at, where Nathan's at. If you see on the mini map, we've got a little bit of a gap. We've already pulled away, we're 10, looking at the chart, we're about 10 seconds ahead of the group that Nathan's in. And by the time we get to this climb, we know that, we can pull forward. We can start building the gap a little bit stronger. At this point, I wasn't focused on, trying to, stay on with Holly. My focus was, I need to stay with this group for as long as I can, if I can, because I knew that this was ultimately going to be like, when I first entered the 350 to 520 races, and I was way beyond my league. And so this is kind of what that felt like is, we've got Thomas Sorensen in the front. You've got Nathan Guerra in the front. That is how you pronounce his name, by the way, Guerra, not Guerra. For those of you who mispronounce his name, I'm sorry. But it gets me every time. Every time I hear people refer to Nathan and Gabby, it kind of gets to me. But that is what it is. So, he's in there in that front group. These guys are motoring on. I'm getting to this part of the climb and I'm thinking like, okay, I need to really rethink what I'm going to do here, because I'm falling off the back with these, I'm falling off the back of this group. I can push hard to catch back up, which I sort of start putting in a little bit deeper effort, to catch at least this person in front of me, because I can. So as I start catching up to this guy in front of me, another rider comes through, this rider Humphrey, which at this point, just because, I'm not on that front group anymore, I'm focused on, just essentially staying where I can, staying in somebody's draft. As we're coming downhill, as we're coming down this hill, I know that I can use my, my body weight and the aerodynamics of the bike that I have to keep up. You saw the person behind me, Rogers, has steering because he just jumped over to the left right behind me. And so that's kind of the plan from here on out. Is my focus is, just kind of motoring on. I feel like at that point, anything I could do for the team is done. I know I'm not going to be able to catch back up with them at this point. They're 6 seconds ahead of me. And it would take a big effort for me to catch them. So as this little group starts to form, I figured, hey, we've got 4 people. That's more than enough to, hold a nice little line. And, here comes a 5th person coming in. So a nice little contingency that we could, kind of keep everybody together. A 6th person, start coming up. So now we've got a nice little group going. So as this little cluster is getting together, we really just kind of, at that point for me, I'm focused on, just staying with this group. I let them know that, I let Holly know, because you could hear, so on the Discord, she was huffing and puffing. She was struggling, and, it made sense. These guys are, the group that she's with are strong A cat riders, strong B cat riders. These are guys that race essentially professionally. So, she's doing an incredible effort to keep up in that group and stay in their draft, really digging deep. And so I figured, hey, if something does happen and she starts to blow up, then, we've got this nice little cluster formed, and, we can pick her up and, continue to pull her forward. If you look on the mini map, you can see we still got a gap on the Nathan group. They're about 20 seconds or so behind us. And so that was, the goal for me was just to kind of stay in between that group for as long as I can, especially as we get to the base of the KOM, which I'm going to go ahead and forward to. So as we're going through the villas, just kind of fast forwarding through this, we're, staying together as a group, coming up to the base of the KOM here, putting in a little bit of effort to just kind of stay with this group, getting into, upper 200 watts. And as we start hitting this climb, my focus at this point is, again, staying with this group, racing my race, keeping a solid pace that I know can get me to the top of the climb. I, ultimately reminded myself that we've got another lap of this to go. We need to, one of the things we talked about, and you'll see it, across the chat, is, for people that were staying behind just to kind of, sit and camp out. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to do that. I wanted to, my focus was getting Holly across the line first. Obviously at this point that wasn't going to happen for me. So then my second, mission was to just get there, get to the line, help the team celebrate her get across the line first. As we're coming up to the top of the KOM here, I'm feeling good about, where I'm at. We're getting into this, the bypass part, and, this cluster's starting to fall apart a little bit, but, seeing kind of where I'm at, what I'm feeling, I'm thinking like, all right, I need to kind of refocus my plan. That was a hard effort going up that, the base of that epic KOM. So just thinking, where can I put in the strongest, where can I position myself where I'm going to be of benefit to the team? So I start slowing down my pace a bit and let this group kind of go up in front of me. I see I've got Nathan's, group about 15 seconds or so behind me. And so I just ultimately let myself kind of coast back while they catch up. So as we're hitting the descent of the bypass of the KOM, we got this little cluster of 4 together. I'm letting Holly know, as well as the rest of the team on Discord, that, hey, we've got this little cluster of 4. We're working well together, trying to do our best to draft off of each other and keep the momentum going. And still, Nathan's team is still a handful of seconds behind us, and so we're motoring along, making good time. Team Holly is way far ahead of us. By this point, I want to say they were about a minute ahead, and so they were absolutely motoring on. And so the best thing I can do here is just, again, wait and let Nathan's, clustered, group that was coming up behind us, that's still, within 7-8 seconds behind us, catch up. So as we start getting to the entrance of the underwater tunnel here, I see this guy Jug come up next to me, and then I see a couple more yellows, and then a whole cluster of yellows, and I realized, all right, we finally got caught. So now the focus was, let me just stay with this group for as long as I can, because why not? And so Peter sent a message. He's like, hey, if you're on Team Holly and you end up in this cluster, because Peter was in this cluster the whole time. He's a fantastic rider. The whole time he's he was our inside man. He's letting us know, hey, we're at this kilometer mark, we're this far back, this is kind of the pace we're going, we're going at in this group. So he was giving us a play-by-play from inside Team Nathan's cluster, which was such a huge, I think a huge benefit to our cause, because that gave us the ability to understand how much effort we needed to push on, in the beginning. He was doing this literally out of the pen. He was doing this, and even before out of the pen, because he put in a message in the chat, saying that we were going to launch at 12 watts per kilogram off the get-go, which is kind of how things played out at the end. And so I'm in this cluster with them and just looking to just kind of chill. At this point, my ability to contribute to the front is way more than over. And so my focus right now is, I will cheer on Nathan, I will cheer on anybody that's in this cluster, but I'm not going to put any effort into helping them set the pace or bridging any gaps, which is kind of, what we talked about and what Peter mentioned. And so just kind of chill off the back of this group. And so as we get to, this bypass here, or not the bypass, but this T intersection, it's about 1 kilometer to go from the, from the official end of the stage. Obviously we still got 1 lap to go. And my thought was like, what, I will have a mechanical and kind of wait it out. But for some reason, I was like, I don't know, I didn't want to stop. And I guess that's the ego in me. I didn't want to stop. I wanted to keep racing. I wanted to, move forward. And, I was starting to slowly drift off the back here. Because again, my plan was to stop and, lead Holly in on the sprint. But she had at this point a minute plus gap. You can't even, if you look at the mini map, you don't even see where the group is at. That's how much of a gap she had. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take it chill. And, you know, Peter's in there. Peter's giving us a play-by-play. My focus right now is I'm just gonna get to the end of the stage, cheer Holly on, do some work with the, fan view, so that way I can, kind of see where they're at. But from this point on, I was just coasting, taking it easy as best I can, and, kind of getting to the end of the stage. And so as I get to the top of the Epic KOM bridge, I see Ryan, Ryan's name, and I'm thinking like, where is he at? It was at 0 watts per kilogram. I was, he was on the Discord on video, and I would see that he was kind of, paused and spinning his legs a little bit, but paused, but I didn't see kind of where he was at on here. And I was thinking like, oh, if he's there, if he's kind of stalled out and out of it essentially, then I'll high five him virtually on the way past him. But I didn't realize this at the time, but he essentially waited and stayed with Nathan's group, jumped into that group, and just kind of rode with them through to the end, which I thought was fantastic. I know that he's such a great rider. And to be able to, essentially finish the race, with Nathan was fantastic. And I thought, again, I'm looking at the chart of the riders, and I'm thinking like, okay, where is he at? And can I catch up and kind of finish with them? I thought about, motoring on and kind of time trialing it to get to them, but I was like, nah. That was gonna, I was looking at how far away they were, and as I was coming up that part of the climb, I was letting Nathan know like, hey, you got this, you can do it. It's a hard climb. Let's get up to the top. I was kind of catching up to him. I got within 20 seconds of him, or about 22 seconds of him. So I was letting him know, hey, I'm, within 30 seconds, within 25 seconds, like, come on, Nathan, you can do this. You can get to the top of the bridge and the bypass before me. Because he was hurting. He was digging deep to keep motoring on. Again, at this point, Holly had probably a minute or two, on the group. So, we weren't going to catch her. And I definitely wasn't going to catch Nathan's team at this point. So I was just focused on, cheering him on and just coasting, to the end of the stage. So I hear that Holly's coming into the end. I'm about 6 kilometers, and this is me trying to figure out how to do the fan view. For some reason, I kept hitting the button, but I didn't see it enabled. And so here's Holly coming in, which I was very much excited about, because that was the plan from the get-go, is to get Holly across the line first. And what a exciting, elated moment it was. And for whatever reason, I decided to stop pedaling. I guess just because I was excited that she got across the line, but also, mentally, it kind of made me feel like I crossed the line as well, which obviously I didn't. I'm still a few kilometers back. So I switched back to my view, and I'm like, oh, I gotta, I'm going downhill, yes, but I gotta keep going. I gotta keep pedaling. And so I was very excited about that. I'm just gonna, keep motoring on and keep cheering Nathan on to get across the line. And so I'm looking down again to see where Nathan's at. I find his name on Companion, just start doing fan view to see, okay, he's, got, a handful, oh, not quite a handful, but, a few kilometers to go. They're getting into the tunnel there, the underwater tunnel. And, so they've got some bit of time to go, but I figured why not, fan view, to get, watch him get across the line as well. And, again, I'm not worried about when I get across the line. So I'm just, essentially spinning my legs, to keep me going. So at this point, I'm still on fan view. I'm kind of switching back and forth. Or I switched back and forth, but I, ultimately left it on fan view. I knew it was, coming within the kilometer mark. As they start getting onto this climb, I'm letting them know like, hey, two last bumps left. We got this, 3% climb at the end of the underwater tunnel here, and then that second, little bump up to the beachfront, the Zwift beachfront. And so I'm just cheering him on at this point. I know he's, he was digging deep. He was digging deep to get across the line. And, it was, a fantastic effort on his part. He's got a great group of people, lots of guys staying together and helping bring him forward. And so, at this point, my focus was just cheering him on. I knew he was going to get across the line. I knew he was going to make it. And so, just kind of watching that happen, spinning my legs, knowing that, whatever adjustments I need to make as far as like speed and power, I'll be able to do it on my own. I'm not gonna worry about whether or not I'm going uphill, downhill, just pedaling my legs and, watching Nathan, get up to, the top of the beachfront, letting him know, hey, this is it. You're, within a kilometer left to go, start bringing up your power. And other guys bringing up their power so they can deliver him. He everybody's cheering him on to sprint, even though obviously Holly crossed the line first. Cheering him on to sprint because why not? At the end of the day, it is still a race, so why not put one last dig into crossing the line? So as you can see, his power's coming up a little bit, and he is getting ready to launch. Power just keeps climbing in this group. A bunch of strong guys. Peter had already launched off the front. He wasn't worried about where he came in. He just he wanted to make sure he came in before Nathan, which is fantastic. And kind of cheering him on and challenging him to pick his power up to sprint. So you see here he's getting up into 300, almost 400 watts, and just coming in smooth, putting in that last dig effort, which he went in deep, absolutely deep. And so Nathan crossed the line, and what a fantastic moment it was. So I checked back in on myself and switch back here. I'm coming up to the 1 kilometer to go mark, which is where that T intersection's at. And I figure, hey, just let me, let's bring it home. And so as we get across, or as I get across the line here, you see the ultimate standings. Obviously, even though Holly's in 5th place here, ultimately she is, she came across the line first, which was the focus for this race. And absolutely, excited at how everybody did with how this went. It was a fantastic event, lots of great, conversations and, challenging each other and, giving each other good ribbings. And it was great community for great causes. I've got the ZMS Esports Studio live broadcast on the phone that I'm holding there in the video, and seeing where they're at, what they're talking about, listening to the last part of the live stream, which I would encourage you go check it out and really take it all in. That's definitely what I plan on doing because I love the commentary. And so I want to hear from their perspective, seeing it from a third party's perspective. So go ahead and check it out. What a fantastic race it was. There's other races that I've done this week. I'm participating in the Flamme Rouge Racing Britannia event. I did the TTT yesterday, or the individual time trial yesterday. And, I got in 8th place, so I'll put a clip of that on the screen here. Finished in 8th place in my category at my time frame. But looking at the standings as of yesterday, I was in 66th place out of 160 something people, which kind of gave me the motivation to want to do the stage today, the Mukko Yin, which was 2 laps around the Mukko Yin, but ultimately ended up not doing that. I started the race this morning, and I made the absolutely stupid basic mistake that a lot of you a lot of new people to cycling do, which is trying something new for the first time on a race day, and it completely destroyed me. I tried using not calcium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate to help with the muscle soreness, because I was thinking, I've got the the podcaster race today, but if I do the Flamme Rouge race first, then I'm focused on, can I recover in time to do the podcaster race? Because then I knew I wasn't going to take her across the line myself, because there's a lot stronger riders that can go with her, and she's also a stronger rider than I am. So my thought was, can I do that? Can I recover fast enough to, get into this race, put in a good effort, at least for the first lap, and then, kind of coast the rest of the way. But ultimately ended up backing out of that race. That I took enough sodium bicarbonate to where it destroyed my stomach. I did not leave the toilet for quite a bit of time, and it was not worth it for me at that moment. I'm going to revisit that. The benefits of it seems to be pretty good. And I'll revisit, my approach to it, but ultimately right now, I'm not going to do it. And so, I backed out of that race for the Mako Yen. So I know I won't, place high, and really I won't be in any of the categories as far as, any of the big qualification categories, because I'm not completing the entire race. But I'm still going to race tomorrow, and as many days as I can, and just get that under my belt, so that way it'll help improve my performance, help me dial in my nutrition strategy, which is kind of, I'm at the point where I feel like it's pretty well dialed in. I'm just kind of still playing with a couple different things here and there to see what's working, and can I improve on some of the stuff that I'm implementing. And then so and those, like I said, those are live races that I'm or races that I'm doing live streams of, which is why I'm kind of doing this format here of bringing in kind of different races together into one video, so that way I can keep up with what I've sharing what I've done, but at the same time also have the day-to-day live races as well. So hopefully you like this format. Hopefully it works. Let me know what you think in the comments. Obviously, do all the good YouTube stuff. And again, if you haven't checked out the ZMS Esports Studio live stream for the podcast race, go ahead and check it out. And for those of you who participated, it was a fantastic event. It was great riding with everybody. And, definitely for me, in the start of my YouTube journey, that was kind of a focus of mine, is being able to participate in events like this and race with people who inspired me to do more and to race more. So I will see you guys on the next race. Have a great one.